Hello and welcome. This is NTA Tuesday Live and I'm Cyril Stober. The nation's highest electoral body, INEC, on the 25th of February conducted what was a keenly contested election since the return of democracy in 1999. The outcome of the presidential election, which had the APC presidential candidate Bola Ahmed Tinubu as the declared winner, has witnessed many discussions and debates. Well, another round of governorship and state assemblies polls following an initial postponement is set. Saturday 18th will be ground for testing the popularity of many politicians at sub-national level. Tonight, NTA Tuesday Live will focus on the 2023 general elections and matters arising. But before we go into the discussions, let's get to see this report put together by Timothy Yusuf.
The February 25, 2023 Presidential and National Assembly election held, producing Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu of the All Progressives Congress as president-elect. The election, according to analysts, was noted by initial high projected turnout and mainly peaceful voting, but was marred by alleged reports of vote buying, voter intimidation, attacks on polling units in certain areas, and unpunctual electoral officials, along with accusations of outright fraud to compound issues with trust in the election. Reason majorly advanced is that the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, officials failed to upload polling unit results to the INEC result viewing portal as previously assured would happen on election day.
Of course, our lawyers are studying the results, of the election, and we await for their advice.
Let me humbly and most respectfully appeal to all Nigerians to remain peaceful, law-abiding, and conduct themselves in most responsible manner. Please be assured that Dati and I, and indeed all of us, this is not the end, but the beginning of the journey for a birth of new Nigeria.
Despite the shortfall, as I've mentioned, beavers problem, transmission problem, we stand by the declaration pending the outcome of the court judgment.
The second leg of the election, governorship and state assembly election, was slated to hold following week, March 11 to be precise, but eventually shifted to March 18 owing to controversies arising from the conduct of the presidential election. Opposition parties demanded an audit of the beavers devices used in the election, but INEC will have to reconfigure them for the next round of election. Shifting the election to March 18 was to allow time for information in the beavers to be backed up in the server, according to INEC. Critical stakeholders supported the move.
It is indeed a difficult time for all lovers of democracy in Nigeria and calls for understanding and maximum support to INEC to discharge the crucial national duty that will define the destiny of the nation.
INEC assures the pitfalls of the presidential election will be lessons in the March 18 election going forward. Timothy Yusuf.
All right, that report sets the tone for tonight's discussion. Let me introduce our guests. I'd like to welcome Victor Aluku, Director of Voter Education and Publicity, INEC. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, good evening. Thanks for having me.
Let me also welcome to this program Faith Mwadishi, Executive Director, Center for Transparency Advocacy. Good to see you.
Good evening. Thank you for having me.
Right. We are also joined tonight by Kayode Ajulo. He is a constitutional lawyer. Dr. Ajulo, thanks for being here with us.
Oh, thank you very much. It's my pleasure.
All right. And joining us from Kanu, joining us from our studio in Kanu is Dr. Rauf Zakariaou, the Department of Political Science, Police Academy, Woodhill. Thanks for being with us tonight.
Good evening. Yeah, good evening.
All right. Right. At some point in time, as you well know, you can join in the discussion in the studio. When it is that time, we'll remind you of the process and the procedure. But straight away, let's begin to look at the issues tonight as we bring into focus matters arising from the 2023 general elections. And easily the very first thing that most people would want to know is we are prepared for another round of voting on Saturday this week. So, we have the INEC representative here, Director of Voter Education and Publicity. So, drawing from what happened on the 25th, what are we taking into Saturday? What are the takeaways from the 25th that will shape, that might impact, or that may be different from this Saturday?
Well, thank you. I think we need to start from the point that as a country, we successfully conducted the presidential, the senatorial, and the House of Representatives elections. We passed that stage, and on March 11, we moved to the next phase. That is the governorship and the state assembly elections. And we need to also pass that stage for us to conclude the process. And then after that, we wait for the next 4 years. This is the way it is. And as a commission, we believe we have delivered our first phase. We have learned certain lessons. There were issues which we encountered on the field, and we've taken into consideration these issues, and we've held meetings after the elections of February 25. We've held meetings with resident electoral commissioners all over the country to review the whole thing. We told ourselves the plain truth in areas where we had logistics problems. We've noted them. We've also noted the issue of the technology we introduced. We've noticed the way the beavers performed. The beavers performed well in terms of accreditation of voters that it was designed to do. And in the area of glitches during the uploading of results, especially the presidential election results, we also taking into consideration all that. We successfully uploaded the National Assembly results, and by now we have uploaded the presidential election results. Even though we could not do that real time, but we have done that. And on Saturday, we believe we'll be able to perform better, because all those logistics problems we had, where we could not open, in polling units where we could not open at 8:30 as we promised Nigerians, we believe this time around we'll be able to open early. And areas where we had problems of transportation, that is movement of our officials to the polling units in time, we'll be able to overcome all that, because we've noted all those places, and we'll be able to overcome all that. And basically, the second round of elections will always be better than the first round, because all we learned during the first round we'll be able to now apply during the second round of elections.
Let me just quickly take on something you mentioned and seek clarification. In talking about the things you experienced in the presidential and National Assembly elections, you mentioned that the technology the Commission adopted, particularly with reference to the beavers, said the beavers performed well in the area of what it was designed to do. I marked that word, designed to do, and that's accreditation. You saying that the beavers was basically designed for accreditation and not uploading of results.
No, I didn't say so.
Okay.
I didn't say so. The beavers was designed for accreditation of voters.
Okay.
To prevent voter fraud.
All right.
That is multiple voter impersonation at the polling unit. Okay. That was what the smart card readers of 2015
so
and 2019 could not achieve.
So,
and also, the beavers
right.
was also designed to do a second thing.
That's what I wanted to clarify.
Upload results onto the IREV portal.
Okay.
Of course, the beavers did that on February 25. We had 3 elections. We uploaded the National Assembly elections. That's real time.
Yes.
For the presidential, we had
the
technical glitches, and the uploading was delayed, and so we couldn't do that real time. But as at now, the whole results are on the portal.
Okay, fine. We'll return to that now and check out a few of those things. But let me quickly go to Faith Madishi and give us your thinking on these issues.
Thank you so much. Good evening again. The election came, we had high expectations, and this is one thing I've learned about, clarifying expectations. We had such high expectations for the election. On election day, it started off well, though there were issues around the logistics, polling units not opening on time. Some of the polling units, because I was on the field on that day, some of the polling units I visited, I saw the beavers accrediting people between 1 to 2 minutes. People were already accredited. But towards the end of the election, for the upload of results, that was when the issues came up. And that was where Nigerians really were looking forward to, the issues around real-time upload of results. So the question was, if the National Assembly results were uploaded, the elections were held at the same time, what happened with the presidential election results? We are still looking for answers to that, because it's the same device, it's not a different device, from the same polling unit. And something that happened very significantly on election day was that Nigerians came out to protect their votes. We saw a different voting pattern. We saw people who had never voted. I saw on the field people who had never voted before. I saw also the fact that persons with disability, pregnant women, were treated very differently, and people out there on the field knew what they had to do. But generally, if you look at the entire value chain of our electoral reforms and progress we have made so far, we have also come to say that the weakest link among stakeholders in trying to achieve a near-perfect electoral system, because there's no way that you have a perfect electoral system, is the political class themselves. The fact is that the political class have carried on business as usual without taking into consideration that this is a new age, this is technology, you have young people, you have old people, but there are new ways of doing things, so they just want to continue to do things the old way. So looking at all of that and then going into the governorship election, we think that INEC could do better. The promises they have made, we hope that they will deliver on that. And again, the issue of logistics, I hope they will get it right this time. Last Thursday, we were at Asaba, where we held a stakeholders meeting with some of the stakeholders on the electoral value chain. And we engaged the NURTW because they seem to be the missing link for getting right the issues of logistics. And the chairman of the NURTW told us that on the night before election, they deployed all their vehicles, but the electoral officers refused to use those vehicles on election day. He said that clearly, that a night before the election, all of the vehicles they needed for election in Delta State, for instance, because that was where we held that stakeholder meeting, were already with the electoral officers. And the electoral officers are in charge of elections at the local government level. They didn't give them access to fuel, they didn't mobilize them, and that was what led to the issues of logistics, particularly for Delta State. So I hope that going into the governorship election, all of the electoral officers, all of the election officers from the SPOs, anybody that has any responsibility around that election would actually do what they're supposed to do. But on the whole, this last election has thrown up a lot of things. It has also thrown up the fact that Nigerians understand the power that they have with their voters' card, and also now seeing the kind of pattern that the governorship campaigns are taking. I'm sure they have also learned lesson from the presidential election, and then campaigns, systems and strategies have changed. If you're following the trend and what is happening along the line, that for me is a good thing. And the entire presidential election for us is a mixed bag. You have the good, the bad, and the ugly. But the best part of it was that Nigerians came out and came out to vote, protecting their votes on election day.
All right, thank you so much. We'll take on some of those issues. But Dr. Ajulo, thanks for being with us here.
Oh, thank you very much.
Appreciate you.
Right. Now, to the issue, I think this is just more like a review of what happened about 2 weeks ago, where we have the election, that's the presidential election and the National Assembly elections. Yes, one thing we should know is when it comes to election, particularly in Nigeria, it seems to be the biggest game, the biggest things where every stakeholders, both in private, both in public sectors, seem to be interested, and that is why we see the stakeholders. And it's expected when you are having a partial contest that has to be overlooked and supervised by impartial officials, there will be several issues. But one thing that really matters most is that the level, like as rightly pointed out by one of the panelists, the level of preparation, this is something that is expected that should have been since over 4 years when we had the last one. Yes, it seems so, but at the end of the day, we can easily know where the whole thing is going. But it depends on the way and manner where the interest lies, and that is the way everybody has been judging this election. But from me as a lawyer, one of the things we have to see, we have to look at is what is the law, and our courts have been saying. And that's why the issue of doctrine of substantial compliance comes in. Because it's expected that in election, it has to be faulted. We don't expect things to work straight and perfect as it is. I'm not saying this maybe to advocate for imperfection, but it is so clear that to have it right in election may be another thing entirely. But what matters most is what has been done. Can we say with the eyes of maybe ordinary man, can we say we have a clear and we can say election that we can be so proud of? And that one comes with the value of individuals. Who is conducting this election? I've seen and I've heard testimony of where some electoral officers, we insist the right thing must be done. And I've seen where, I've heard again, where some electoral officer will even be the one canvassing to ensure that they compromise the system. So what matters most in most of this thing is individual value and what they place about their character, about their competency, and about what they hold so dear. And I think that is one of the major issues. And from the point, particularly being the first election with the phases of election, you notice that Nigerians came out so enthusiastic, so excited, and to some, they are disappointed. To some, they are happy that they've been able to cast their vote. I have seen some young people that will say, oh, for the first time I did it, I can easily identify my voting center and I've been able to vote. Why some will tell you this is something else. These vulnerables, those with special need, you can see that they are giving special interest to and special treatment. So by and large, I think it is like a phase, and it's like it is more like a journey, moving gradually. But I do say somewhere this morning that this shouldn't cause voter apathy, because I always believe that it is a political party that need to mobilize people, that need to educate, because I always believe that political party in Nigeria always believe that all they need to do is to win election. We shouldn't be. Voters' education, they should, apart from INEC, they should be the one that should be in the forefront of voter education. And apart from that, they should be the one that will educate the voters to let them know that in this election, something may not be right, and you know that you should start blaming or start blame gaming. Is to let us know this is what it is and this is how to really settle it. And at the end of the day, Nigeria must remain united. Nigeria must remain one. And aggregately, like I mentioned, substantive compliance. at the end of the day, whoever that will find running the affairs of our country, we should be able to say, yes, it has a consensus of Nigeria to be there.
Right, thank you so much. And let's go back to our studio in Kano and talk to Dr. Zakari Yao. And, well, Dr. Zakari Yao, are you there? As we prepare to go into the sub-national election on Saturday, what are we taking from the presidential and national assembly elections in preparing and getting things done and doing the right things on Saturday? What are your thoughts? Right, I'm sure, Dr. Zakari Yao, can you hear me? All right, well, we'll sort things out. We can just go right ahead and we'll fix whatever that glitch is there and return to Dr. Zakari Yao. But back here in Abuja, the Director of Voter Education and Publicity. Saturday is just a few days away, and as you have also observed, the Commission has learned quite a lot from what happened at the Presidential and National Assembly elections, so it's going into, and easily the biggest issues would be the logistics you talked about and the inability to upload real-time the presidential, even as said the National Assembly results are updated. So all eyes will be on the Commission this time around, and to be definite and say, this time around we're going to get this right. There's been so many discussions about what went wrong, technology failure, things like that, and attempts to hack. But again, others would say, now these things are to be expected. And Nigerians would say, what was the plan B if something happened? So now they probably will say there should even be a plan C, just in case plan B doesn't work as a backup.
Well, the truth is, when we're looking at elections, we are looking at whether an election actually is conducted or not.
Right.
There are processes for conducting an election, and that's what is so important to us. And of course, important to stakeholders too. All the planning for elections, all the provision of funds by government, all the recruitment of officials, all the acquisition of technology, all the training, all the movement up and down before election day are all to provide a platform for voters to exercise their franchise. All other things are secondary. Once voters are able to vote on election day and make their voices heard through the ballot, that is the essence of elections. On February 25, the question we'll have to continuously ask ourselves is, did we conduct elections in this country? Did we have the required outcomes? Our learned panelists in the studio talked about the issue of substantial compliance. The truth is, we conducted elections in this country. We declared winners in almost all the constituencies, except places where the senatorial elections were inconclusive, maybe rounds were inconclusive. That is, we achieved the necessary outcomes. There are Nigerians who even think, because of the way, the post-election reactions, there are Nigerians who even think we didn't conduct any election at all. That people just went to the polling units and they returned home. But in almost all the polling units, except places where maybe through violence the results were cancelled, elections were conducted and Form EC8As were filled. And that is the most important evidence that the election took place in any polling unit. As I always say, every other thing after the presiding officer has filled Form EC8A, has signed, agents have signed, every other thing are merely administrative to be able to be for the returning officers at whatever levels to be able to return the winners. The activity starts, the activity actually starts at that point, the polling unit. And the evidence for whatever you do comes from the polling unit. So Nigerians, many Nigerians who think we didn't even achieve anything at all, who think we didn't even do anything, must be told and must be educated about the point that elections took place in this country. In 176,606 units where we actually deployed men and materials. We could talk about places where we got to the polling units late because of logistics problems. Yes, that happens, and as I told you earlier, as a commission, we've taken note of why did that happen? Why were we not able to deploy in certain places at the expected time? And at all these places, on Saturday, March 18, we will do our best to make sure that all those lapses do not reoccur. And once we're able to deploy very well, the officials are there, materials are there. Of course, it's important for voters to shun any form of voter apathy. As has been noted during this discussion, it's important for voters to come and vote, because everything is to enable voters to come out and vote. And the governorship elections, the governor election, and the House of Assembly elections are extremely important, because they are elections that touch the people a lot in terms of they'll be electing people that are closer to the grassroots. Imagine House of Assembly elections. You may even find that in a local government, in some local governments, you have two constituencies. It's a man, no man election, if I'm allowed to use that phrase, where people actually know each other. And you find a situation where the winner may even win with as low as 10 votes, because it's first past the post thing. That is simple majority. So it's an important election, and we believe that Nigerians will shun any form of apathy, come out in their localities, vote for their governors, vote for their representatives, so that at the end of the day, we conclude the process. And as I've always explained, as a country, we need to now move forward. We need to move on. It's not only the elections the country will be conducting. There are many other aspects of our life that we need to work on. Areas of education, agriculture, areas of health services, many areas that we need to face as a country. So we need to conclude the elections, put them behind us, and then move on. So Nigerians should not bother much about the problems we encountered on February 25. It's normal in life. And then we need to move forward. Even in our personal lives, we encounter problems, and we'll get over them and we'll move forward. I just want Nigerians to be sure that the problems we encountered on February 25 as INEC, those problems will be taken care of on March 18. And so Nigerians should not worry too much. They should come out and vote, and their votes will always count.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. And yes, so let's get back to Dr. Zakariaou, who is joining us from our Kano studios. And I believe that you can hear us now clearly. Dr. Zakariaou. Yes.
Hear you now.
The presidential and National Assembly elections to help us pull through Saturday's governorship and state assembly elections to, just like the Director of Voter Education said, to have it better than the first round of elections.
Well, I couldn't get the last aspect of the question clearly. But
right, the last part I was saying, what are we taking
from your...
If you follow the discussion generally, that's providing, of course, you've been able to hear us. What are we taking from the February 25th round of elections as we go into the 18th Saturday's elections, so as to have them better?
Okay, thank you. Well, based on what you have experienced during the presidential and National Assembly elections, you could recall there were some issues, particularly with INEC unable to transmit the results. That was the basic argument about the beavers not be able to transmit the result as expected. Nevertheless, as I've said in my previous interview in the studio in Abuja then, that when we talk of electoral democracy, we talk about a democratization process that needs to be strengthened with time. And from what we experienced on 25th during the National Assembly and the presidential election, we could realize that there was a kind of better off in terms of comparing to what happened in 2015. Now, 2019 as well. Now, moving forward, INEC has given us a lot of assurance that we are going to have an improved electioneering conduct come governorship election, which has been rescheduled for March 18. And basically, aside from the issue of the beavers or the inability to transmit the election on the INEC server, the conduct was a bit free and fair, credible to some extent, because it was a pass mark compared to what we have been experiencing in the previous elections. So, going forward, I think, and INEC is expected to also perform better compared to what we actually experienced in the last election. That tells you that electoral democracy itself is a process that requires to be strengthened. To be strengthened in the sense that whatever lapses that might have been observed in the last election, this coming gubernatorial election, there should be a high level of improvement. And from the preparation so far, coupled with the timing given to INEC, we expect an electoral system that will be more formidable in terms of having high level of credibility and ensuring that the level of integrity meets up with the international best practices. And when we look at some of the comments from local and international observers, no election is perfect anywhere in the world, and INEC cannot be exception. But the fact remains that unlike in the previous years, particularly in 2007 elections, whereby voters might be on the queue, results will be announced, we could see some level of improvement as a result of introduction of some technological innovations, which INEC has been doing right from Jega era up to this present INEC. It tells you that we keep improving. We might not be able to have gotten to the stage we are expecting to reach, but with time, our electoral democracy will be strengthened, and with time, our electioneering process is going to be getting more improved. And that is why no perfect election anywhere in the world, but we expect INEC to have also learned from the previous election, particularly some of the lapses observed. INEC should ensure, particularly because the clamor now is election results should be transmitted. Once there is a delay in terms of transmission of the result, there might be a kind of fallout, there might be some level of discrepancies. But when we look at what have been uploaded so far, the discrepancies from observation so far, there are not much difference. That tells you that the credibility of even the manual collations cannot be undermined to some extent, despite the fact that there were some areas whereby maybe the figures might not tally. But with time, we think INEC should be able to learn from its lesson, and the coming gubernatorial election scheduled for March 18 should be a better performance for INEC. And that is the expectation from all Nigerians. And we should also believe in the system, because the major problem Nigerians have with our system, it has to do with the belief from some of the citizens thinking you cannot trust the government, you cannot trust the INEC. Once the issue of political cynicism, which is all about trust deficit, once we are able to have trust in our system, once we are able to have trust in our institutions, I think we can all play the role of stakeholders Because this issue of conducting elections should not be left for INEC alone. We understand that there should be a synergy, and that synergy matters most. If the citizens that happen to be the voters feel INEC cannot conduct credible elections, definitely there is no how effort INEC will put in place, they might not actually achieve the targeted aim. What I'm saying in essence is that there should be a kind of collaboration, there should be a cooperation from all stakeholders involved in ensuring that INEC deliver credible, free, and fair elections that can meet up with global international best practices. On that note, we expect a better outing from INEC during the forthcoming gubernatorial elections because of the lessons learned in the National Assembly and presidential election. And I'm of the opinion, I'm very optimistic that INEC is going to perform better, and there is every likelihood for us to have an electoral process that will be more strengthened and that will be more formidable for the interests of Nigeria's democracy.
All right, let me just stay with you a little while longer, Dr. Zakariaou. There are many who say the governorship and state assembly elections are, in fact, maybe more important than the presidential, for instance, because you're dealing with government, those who will administer at the subnational level, who are expected to be much closer to the people. So, seeing the voting trend, do you believe that, with that at the back of your mind, do you believe that the governorship and state assembly elections are likely to be more keenly contested than what we saw in the presidential and National Assembly elections? All right, we'll okay. It would seem you didn't quite get that. We'll return to you. But back here in the studio, Dr. Ajulo, let me just put the same question to you. Seeing the voting trend of the 25th, some would say the election at the subnational level is even more important. You're dealing with people that, who are closer to the grassroots. Do you expect it to be more keenly contested?
Well, one thing is who wears the shoe, know where it pinches. I think that's what we should look at tonight. It depends on individual experience. If, for example, we can say, we have mentioned talking about the presidential election and the gubernatorial election, leaving out even local government election. To my mother's at home, that's at the hometown now, all she talks about anytime she sends me text is to tell me what the councillors or what the chairmen of the local government is doing. That is our focus. To her, those are the biggest fish that matter to her. The same thing that those in the state capital, their belief is the governor and the national and the state assembly, and not to talk of those, maybe those in Abuja and some people that play National League, let me use that word. So everything, I believe the Constitution is not making any mistakes by trying to delineate and try to fix some elective offices from the president to the governors, to the assemblies, national, state, down to the local government. Everything is important to whosoever that is affected. I want to believe, from where I'm coming from, maybe being my experience and being maybe a socialist, the grassroots, the local government, to me, seem to be more important because it affects a lot of people. By the time you look at the numbers of those, is about utilitarian. Those are affected, you find that, those in the grassroots. And that's why some of us believe that. And you can see what the president tried to do sometimes when he tried to give the grassroots, as the local government, some bite. So I believe it is not happenstance we have the president, the office of the president. It's not happenstance we have the office of the governor. It's not happenstance we have the office of the State House of Assembly and National Assembly down to the local government. Everyone is important. And what this thing matters most is that this one defines us as citizens of Nigeria. One of the basic things for you to be a citizen, to have the right of choice, and we talk of freedom. Freedom should not be, and you talk of violation until when police start beating you or somebody try to violate your right. Freedom starts when you have a freedom to be able to pick and to choose who you believe in. And that is one thing I will try to take INEC on the fact that INEC has done its bit. But I don't think that it should be that, oh, we've done our bit in accordance to the procedure. It has to go more than that. People go out to vote, to exercise that freedom. And that means that, and the expectation that freedom, that what they have exercised, counts. And not only that, and that's why I would have loved a situation that we have one of the members of the armed forces or maybe the security here, because it seems that the only INEC everybody looking at now. What about the police? What about the civil defense? What about all those people that, because when it comes to election, INEC is not alone here. When we talk of stakeholders, I listened to the professor, yes, the professor, talking about stakeholders. Stakeholders start with the citizen, to the INEC, that is the empire, down to other like security agencies and all those people, including civil society. Good enough, we have one of them here. When all this come together and everyone has been able to do his bit, you will shout hallelujah and alhamdulillah that we've been able to fix our system right. Because the process is, you know, sometimes now we're discussing politics, we are discussing election. I'm sure in the next 2 months or 3 months, we're talking of policy. How is it affecting the people? Is this minister working well? Is this governor doing what it is? Forgetting that this is a process that indicates for us to know that this minister, this governor, this our elected representative is going to give us the dividend of democracy, because where we miss it by choosing the right person, that's when we will be complaining to say that in a way we expect to have a vote for education instead of maybe 40%, you're having 2% and we are complaining. Forgetting that the process of bringing the person may not even know who need to go to school or not. So I think that is why sometimes we interrogate this, and that's why the election, when I started, I said the election is the biggest thing, because it's like a process to the end. I listened to one of the presidential candidates saying that he has no problem with who won, but it's a process. Yes, it's a process, but that process will go down to how he even emerges as the presidential candidate of the party he raised. So, though I don't really want to raise that issue now, but this is about process, getting the process right. And getting the process right should not be after election have been conducted and after somebody has lost the election before start shouting blue murder. It is a process that must be done, and it must be according to the book. That is part of the rule of law. When we talk of rule of law, it's not until when you go to court and you lose an election or the courts give you another verdict. Rule of law is to make sure you dot the T and the I's and you ensure that everything as it is, all the checklist is ticked. That's when we can now sit down to say, oh, we've been able to do this process right. But to your question, every elective offices, as indicated, as prescribed by law, matters most. If not, then we won't have it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Well, Faith Nwadichi, you look to on Saturday. We want to see a real contest now. You know, Victor Aluko said it might be, as you put it, a man-no-man election.
So for me, I agree to an extent to your analysis that every election, every position matters. But for me, I think that the governorship and House of Assembly elections are most important. The reason for that is that at the local level, politics is local, so they say. And you know that it is when we get to the local the governorship and the House of Assembly that you see that locality, that where you situate the elections and the positions, because that's where you expect to see the dividends of democracy. But because of the fact that you have this kind of system that allows people from the subnational level to look up to the national level every month allocation before they can do things, people tend to misplace the importance of the governors and the House of Assembly and then look up to the president that is so far away from the people. I'm sure that there are a lot of people in Nigeria media that will never get to see the president, but just see them on television. But perhaps they have more opportunity to get to see the members of the House of Assembly. The same way, we also don't understand the different mandate, for instance, that the governor as the executive arm of government has, and the member of House of Assembly as legislative arm has. There are people that have members of Houses of Assembly in their locality, because he or she is from a particular place, he has never stood up on the floor of the House to raise a motion in support of members of his constituencies. But because he or she is buying keke and buying cars and doing other things that is not in the immediate mandate of that person, you see that person going over and over and over and over and over again. And the person has never raised a motion on the floor. And that's why it's important that we need to truly educate citizens on these different positions and the mandate that they have. The local government elections, though it's not part of what we are having our conversation right now here, you see that all of the state, depending on which party is in power in any particular state, 24 hours after that election, everybody is declared, into that seat. So the House of Assembly and the governorship election, in my view, is very important, and citizens should come out to sit down to ensure that they elect people on that day. Because if they don't do that, the whole aspect of dividend of democracy, if you're looking for hospitals, primary health care center is situated within the local government, within the state, and it is within the purview of the executive governor or the members of the House of Assembly to look at the budget, scrutinize the budget so well, such that the plans of the executive can be translated into action for the people. But if we don't understand that governorship and House of Assembly elections are very important, and the people we put there are very important, people will always want to look at the presidential election being more important than those ones that are closer to them.
All right, at this point in time, we will begin to take a number of our reports, which we have here. The first on the list would be this one from Lagos.
Drawing its legal framework from the Electoral Act 2022, the 2023 general elections is regarded as a crucial phase in Nigeria's democratic experiment for so many reasons. For instance, apart from the usual apprehension which is common during election periods, the 2023 polls saw an unprecedented uptake in political participation, judging from the number of voter registration and PVC collection among Nigerians, particularly the youth. With about 2 million PVC collected, Lagos State led in this regard.
For the first time in the history of this country, Nigerians were so enthusiastic about the electoral process, and so they came out en masse. Quite a large number of people come out to vote. Unlike the previous election, people are running out of this country, they are running away because they don't want to be around during the electioneering. Interestingly, this time around, many of them came back home, particularly because of this particular election.
Considering the awareness that preceded the election, I think the participation was high.
The deployment of the Beavers machine for accreditation and voting was conceived as a game changer for the election. However, the excitement about its use has been severely dampened by glitches suffered during the polls. With about 4 major political parties headlining the polls, the exercise, particularly the presidential election, was not the usual two-horse race. As contending parties shift the battleground to courtrooms and tribunals, and INEC fine-tunes its preparations for the second round of ballot, what is certain is that Nigerians are not deterred in their resolve to exercise their franchise.
I do hope that the political parties will up their games, talk more to their followers and supporters to come out and vote. And the supporters too should know that this is the government that did directly with them. The people should own it, come out en masse and exercise their franchise.
1 million Nigerians, they will still come out and vote. They won't be discouraged and they'll come out and vote. Because I think this is a defining election already, and there has been a momentum from the 25th of February, because from that election, people knew that the votes count actually.
They are coming out because Nigerians have realized that the power is in their hand and they are going to vote whoever they want to vote for.
With governorship and state assembly elections rescheduled for March 18, eligible voters, INEC and other agencies involved in the management of elections will keep another date with history, hopefully concluding the process of giving Nigeria a fresh crop of elected leaders.
Right, that report from Lagos. The next one comes from Port Harcourt.
I come here. Don't say machine no good. I never eat from morning reaching now. Register here, and this my name comes out, and my face is here where they paste. Now when I went there to vote, they said I will not vote here. Say a machine rejected my card.
The 2023 presidential and National Assembly elections was characterized by high turnout of voters, many of who trekked long distances to cast their ballot for candidates of their choice due to their commitment and dedication to the exercise. With the assurances by INEC on free, fair and credible polls through the introduction of the BVAS machine and massive campaigns by political parties and candidates, many of those who participated in the election wanted to bring about the needed change.
A lot of people are complaining, but to me it's a bit fair, because if you look at it, there are gain and losses. You know, this is the first time Tinubu lost Lagos.
We saw novelties in our political landscape. It couldn't have been true that before now, the president of a country would lose election in his own state.
Unlike previous elections in the country, the introduction of the cashless policy and redesigning of the Naira notes by the CBN few weeks before the elections, many say, reduced incidences of vote buying and voter inducement. These left voters with no choice than to cast their ballot for candidates irrespective of party affiliation.
Whatever may be the underpinnings of that decision of CBN, the timing was absolutely wrong.
The 2023 presidential and National Assembly elections may have come and gone, but the lessons of the election will continue to linger and serve as a yardstick for planning future.
All right, a report from Port Harcourt, and back here in the studio, this is the one we'll turn to INEC once again. A number of those reports basically talked about some of the already identified challenges which INEC has promised to deal with towards Saturday. But of course, the fallout of the presidential and National Assembly elections led to the postponement of the governorship and state assembly elections. Right. Because arising from matters of that election, the commission had to postpone for 1 week. So we suppose that this gives the commission the leeway to carry out what it says it wants to do. Give us an update on that.
Yes. Actually, the issue of postponement of the governorship and state assembly elections has to do with the need for us to reconfigure the BVAS machines. Now, after the presidential and national assembly elections, according to our plan, we needed to do what we call reverse logistics. That is, get back to base the materials we used at the polling units. You know, the polling units, we'll call them, that's the field. When you operate, you return your materials back to your office so that you can launch out another day. Now, the BVAS, for us to be able to conduct the next round of elections, we needed to reconfigure them. Now reconfigure looks like a big technical term. All it means, we need to reset them technically for them to be useful for the next round of elections. So we have planned to do that for 5 days. But you recall that two candidates who felt aggrieved, of course, they had the right to take necessary action which they felt they should take, went to court to request for approval of the court to inspect the materials, including the beavers. And of course, the court obliged them. Now, if you are going to be inspecting 176,606 beavers machines, then definitely we will not be able to reconfigure them and get them ready for the next round of elections. So INEC too had to go back to the same court to say, please see the situation. And of course, the court looked at it and agreed and gave us the go-ahead to reconfigure. Now, by the time all that one played out, we had only Thursday, Friday, between that Wednesday that judgment was given, that approval was given, and the elections. And of course, 2 days were not enough for us to configure. So we had to now, it was necessary for us to postpone, for us to be able to get the number of days needed. And of course, I can tell you categorically that as of today, we have finished the reconfiguration of all those beavers machines. And we are ready to redeploy them back to the field on March 11. That was what exactly happened. It was not the fault of anyone. It was not the fault of the candidates who felt they needed to look into them, not the fault of INEC, not the fault of the courts. I think all of us are just trying to do what we think is necessary and important. And so we've postponed the elections to March 18. We are ready. The political parties are ready. And I believe all stakeholders are ready, including the voters who will come and vote on election day. Whatever the case is, the important thing is for us to conduct the next set of elections successfully so that everybody will be happy.
Well, at this point in time, we'll take a short break. When we return, the phone lines will be open. It means you can get to join in the discussion in the studio, and we will look out. We'll expect that we'll have many calls tonight. So stay with us on NTA Tuesday Live. We'll be back shortly. Right, thanks for staying with us. Now, this segment, we can join in the discussion. The phone lines will be on your screens. You can take advantage of them and call in. And we say this every Tuesday. If you're calling in tonight and your call gets through to the studio, do us a favor, turn down the volume of your TV set. That's the way to avoid the hurlback or the echo. And we also encourage you to keep it short and simple. Don't bother too much about the greetings. Just a simple hello would do. So you keep those calls coming, and we will go to Dr. Zachariah in Kanu at this point to ask him one or two more issues about Saturday's election. Now, this has to do with the voting pattern which was noticed at the presidential and National Assembly elections, where we saw a complete departure. People lost places that were traditionally their enclaves. Now, if that were to happen at the state level, what does that say of the political culture which Nigeria is gradually building?
Thank you very much. You know, the National Assembly and presidential election actually indicated the scenario in which Nigeria's politics, two major factors cannot be accepted. It has to do with ethnicity and religion. And going to the gubernatorial elections, we should also take note of the fact that at every state level, there are also politics of, or there is a politics of, minority and majority dichotomy, depending on which section of a particular group has the largest numbers of maybe voters or having the largest local governments in the states. Be that as it may, what we have been experiencing, like what some of the political parties have done during their primaries, particularly for these gubernatorial elections, they are trying to operate a kind of what we call a zoning formula, trying to have a gentleman understanding that, oh, if this particular senatorial district has done it for 8 years, maybe the governor is from Kano West, for instance, then we move to Kano South for another 4 to 8 years. That tells you that there might be a kind of departure during the gubernatorial election on the basis of the fact that at most of those states that are preparing to go for governorship election, you could see is that most of the serving governors presently, they have been able to have understanding with other units in the sense that other senatorial districts that differ from their own. It tells you that there is a kind of agreement within the political stakeholders at state level. And that tells you that we might not actually have the kind of movement experienced during the presidential election. Because at this level, it has to do with, it confines within a particular state, and most of the people within a state, they largely speak almost same language. Even if there are a minority, it is not that pronounced compared to a federal elections, like what happened on 25th of February, whereby we're having 3 major ethnic groups, contesting. We have the Hausa, the Yoruba, the Fulani, and the Igbo. So, but in this case, at state level, like everybody is saying, they see themselves as like one. If you go to the southeast, for instance, we might be seeing some surprises. It might not be about maybe Labour Party winning all the state, because either candidate coming from Labour Party or from APC, from PDP, they all belong to the same enclaves. On that note, there might be a kind of departure. It has to do with candidature now. It has to do with the personality or the track record of individuals contesting at every state level. Not matter of, oh, I'm coming from this, I'm coming from there. So though some of those intrigues will also play out, but it's not going to be formidable. It's not going to dominate the political scene like what we actually experienced during the National Assembly, particularly the presidential election. But for the gubernatorial election, it's going to be an election that is based on individuals' personality as far as their various states are concerned. It has to do with what you have done. If you have been in line with your people at your state, there's every tendency for you to gather a reasonable vote. And that is going to speak volume, because at this level, people might not actually look at the political affiliation, but they want to look at the personalities of the candidates. They want to look at the track records of the candidate, which is going to make the election more interesting. So we are going to be seeing a lot of surprises. The surprise says that it might not be about power of incumbency. This is ruling government, APC controlling this state, or PDP controlling that state. Even unknown party, unknown party in the sense that party that is not that popular might actually emerge, depending on the personality of the candidate, because there might be a kind of protest vote at state level, considering the fact that individuals, candidates, the track record, the personality of the candidate, and what the candidate must have done for the people across the state might actually speak volume. So in this case, there will not be a kind of, the general notion of, oh, this particular candidate has won this geopolitical zone because it's coming from that angle, or the voting pattern that has always been in line with ethnicity or religion. In gubernatorial election, it's going to be of politics of personality. It's going to be of election of individual, showcasing what they have actually impacted in the lives of their people. And that is a situation whereby people will start questioning the integrity of various political players across the state level, which is very interesting. So in this coming gubernatorial election, it might not have to do with, oh, a big movement which can easily sweep others. No, it has to do with what is your own movement as far as you are concerned. If you are a particular candidate that you have done much for your people, the movement might go in your own direction. But it is not an hidden game now. In the game, in the sense that when we look at what happened during the presidential election and the National Assembly election, in Kaduna State, we were able to have Okada rider, emerging victorious in the House of Representative elections. What happened in FCT in Abuja, all those could be categorized as a result of the movement that actually came on board based on the fact that the candidature of Peter Obi enhanced some of those electorate to vote in the pattern of, oh, we are voting for Obi. Some of them did not even bother to know who is the candidate representing a particular senatorial district, who is a member of the House of Representative candidate. But in gubernatorial election, those candidates are known to the people within the state. And what can only speak volume for any candidate to emerge, it has to do with what that candidate has actually done for his own people within his community and at the state level at large. So it's going to be a kind of different ball game. It might not be a party affair. Of course, party will play a major role because political parties using their structures they try to gather vote, they try to mobilize. But because of the level of political consciousness, which is becoming more subjective, though we have not gotten to the participant level, but it is not parochial when it comes to state level. Subjective in the sense that people tend to ask questions, though they might not be able to be asking advanced questions like what is obtainable in advanced democracy. But our democracy is also evolving. We are getting there on the basis of the fact that people are now differentiating the right candidate from the wrong candidate. People are now speaking, using their vote to challenge our political leaders. And that makes it more interesting because democracy is all about representative of the interests of the people. So once the interest of the people is jettisoned, then there is every tendency for us, for the people to also speak louder when it comes to voting, when it comes to electioneering. And the gubernatorial election that is coming on 18, there will be surprises on the basis of candidates' track record, on the basis of candidates' publicity in the state, on the basis of what the candidate can offer. It might not be on the basis of, I belong to this political party, I belong to that political party. It's going to be a different ballgame, unlike what we experienced during the presidential election.
All right, thank you very much. At this point, we'll return to the reports, a number of reports which we had earlier told you we have. This time we have this one coming from Eula.
Early as 8 o'clock in the morning, voters from across the state went to their various polling units to vote for the candidates of their choice in the presidential and National Assembly elections. The process of accreditation and voting were peaceful, with large turnout of voters on queue waiting for their turn to exercise their franchise.
Very easy, very well streamlined. The equipment worked very well.
I've been monitoring from this election. It has been really quiet than before.
The process has gone smoothly, more than our expectation. It has started earnest. There is no complaint in most of the reports we are getting all over the state.
It's very peaceful and it's orderly.
It's an excellent innovation.
The process is quite commendable. I think INEC have done an excellent job over the years. They have rehearsed this over and over, and I think we are getting to the point of perfection very soon.
This is free and fair and well-coordinated exercise. I have not encountered any problem. All the polling units I visited.
So good. From all the places we visited, and even from the field, we have not been to, but officers who are there have been giving us very favorable reports.
Calling on the electorate to be calm. Whatever the outcome of the elections, there are other means of getting redress. There are legal opportunities for aggrieved candidates to take the matter up further.
In Yola, Yusuf Jika.
From Yola, we go to Oka, where we have this other report coming from.
Outcome of the elections. Analysts in Anambra State listed late arrival of voting materials, inadequate training for ad hoc staff, poor transportation arrangement, especially in the riverine areas, as well as manual transmission of results, as some factors that played out in the last election, which were not expected.
Promise of electronic transmission of results. A lot of places it was not done.
Nigerians went to the poll hoping that this time around, with the technology that was promised us, that the beaver is not going to fail, it cannot be manipulated. A lot of people went there with a lot of hope.
Today's election, what we expect is that with all the protests that we have made about the non-functionality of the beavers, with all the protests we have made about INEC being unable to upload polling unit result in real time on the IRF for Nigerians to see, we are hoping that INEC will take a cue to this and be able to amend its ways and do things well.
On whether candidate or party will influence the March 11 State Assembly election, holding without governorship election in the state, and suggesting way forward for a hitch-free elections, they also say voters now make informed choices.
This time around, it's not about party. It is a new development in democracy of the country, that people now follow individuals, no longer political parties, for the good of society and good of the country.
There is likelihood people are going to make their decisions based on the personalities they choose as their, the correct person.
Or let me say, average Anambra voter is enlightened. you can't influence the person. Where I voted last time, people were trying to canvass for, and people said, no, allow me to vote my conscience.
They urged INEC and other election stakeholders in the interest of fairness and democracy to live up to their expectations. Inoka Ngozi Okekaro.
Right. Thank you. Back here in the studio, and Dr. Kayode Ajulo is still here with us. And from some of these reports and from the analysis by Dr. Zakariaou, probably it's the personalities now that count. But again, the parties provide the platform.
Yes, you know, some times ago I did a research on issue of the parties, particularly with their concept, with their manifestos and co. And you see that, unfortunately, Nigerian political parties seem to be one and only one. It is more or less like a bus stop where you need to get a bus, you quickly rush to one bus and you quickly have an umbrella, then you quickly jump in and maybe take you to another destination. When the bus is not coming, you change the bus stop to another one. And that has been, and I believe it is because of that we are seeing that the Nigerian people are already taking their fate from the parties to individuals. Because if the party has failed us, the next thing to now see is the personality. And it is expected that it is the bird of the same feather that should flock together. But unfortunately, in Nigeria, different birds, even animals, even reptiles can even try to fly with birds now. So it's just so unfortunate. And I think that is what we are seeing now, that people now, they've already lost faith with the party. And that is why the issue of individual, because that is what remains. If you have lost the hope in one, then let us see. Maybe this face look like mine. Maybe his ways, his religion, and that's why we can see the issue of scattering remarks on religions and ethnicity is coming in. But that should not be. It is about faith. And I think that is why that the voters need to know that what they are doing and what they will be doing on Saturday, it is like article of faith. It's like a solemnization of saying this is what I believe in. It is like I cannot be there. I need to put someone that I believe I trust. It is the issue of trust, and I believe that is what we should be looking at. It is not about, and that is why we cannot blame them for now thinking that it is individual. You don't expect me, if I don't have faith in someone who I believe that when it comes to money, you cannot trust him with money, and you want me to trust him with my life. I think that is why. And I believe maybe after this election, there will be a way the political party can come together or separately to try to identify themselves. That's why the issue of ideology is coming. Unfortunately, we don't seem to have that. And that's why you see someone who has never been a member of the political party, within 3 or 4 days will emerge as presidential candidate of the party. Whereas that is not what the Constitution is saying. I think this is the fallout of some of the things some of us have been raising issue about. But still, what matters most is about trust and faith. And if people can now take their faith to individual and leave the party, after all, what are the party doing? I don't think nobody needs to blame them.
Faith.
I quite agree, and that's the reason why it's so easy. Somebody can get elected on a particular political party platform, and just a few months down the line, the person crossed carpets without any comes to those people who elected him or her to that position. So truly, elections at the subnational level is more about individuals and not political parties. And something we'll be looking at for come Saturday is that some states where some political parties is almost like a religion to them, you see that the pattern of voting for the presidential election actually changed, and we're seeing that going into the election on Saturday. And I mentioned here earlier that because of the outcome of the presidential election, those states where you have like a religion that this is the political party, or states where ordinarily you thought this state is always in the opposition, they have changed their strategy for campaigning. And I guess some of those states, the 1 week extension that we had for the election is beneficial to them, because during this 1 week, we have seen that they have gone away from their traditional way of campaigning to now meeting people one-on-one in their homes. You're seeing people go to the marketplaces. You're seeing people go to religious places to meet and engage with citizens, voters who would vote for them. Ordinarily, this is what it should actually have been, but because some political parties take it for granted that even if you put anybody on the platform, the person definitely would coast home with victory. We see again going into this election divisions amongst even the very strong blocks of the different political parties. So people are not even sure of the ticket. Like before, you have some state by now they're saying, oh, because this person is on our ticket, you know this person is going to win the election, is going to be that. But citizens need to go beyond that to ensure that when people are voted into office, it's not just about that election. That's why I also want to talk about the fact that our elections are a process. It's not a one-off thing that you do and you forget about it. Because the election itself is a foundation of our democracy. It is that process that brings people into administering our democracy. If we get it wrong, it means that we will get it all wrong to the end. We will not be able to hold people accountable, because at the end of the day, you hear people talk about, oh, your vote didn't bring me here. And luckily for us, we are moving away from that. We are now also coming to realize that you can now find the actual number of persons who come out to vote. I think it was Prof that mentioned something about the 2007